We have been asked by the Minister, specifically former Minister Burke, to distill those investment priorities into 5 areas. So while we had quite a long list, we now have these 5: industry development, sustainable production, capacity and people, transformational RD&E and international links. Now, if you analyse the 2.9 billion according to these categories, there is a very large chunk in the industry development, sustainable production area, the blue bit. The capacity and people bit does show up as being underdone, which is probably not surprising given what we're all concerned about. Transformational is also quite low. International is spread across scientific networks, the ACR development country networks, some trade-related networks, and of course we shouldn't forget the work of Austrade in that space, as well as the trade that comes from specific industry trajectories. I'm not 5 minutes apart. So that mix is something that we're very interested to think about. If you were chair of the Rural R&D Council, what percentage of your $2.9 billion would you put into each bit? On what basis would you make that judgment? And how would you do that knowing that at the moment some of the data is still relatively weak? So we believe that there's a need to strike some kind of portfolio balance. Now my colleagues and I, fabulous folk, we work really hard, have a bit of fun, believe that this is about what we would like to see. We believe that 40% should be looking at transformation for long-term outcomes. We believe that 30% should be focusing on near-term adjustment for mid-term outcomes. We'd like to see 20% for capacity building in people, which would be tantamount to a large increase in current funding. And 10% we have there for international linkage, although that is sometimes contested. The point really is that as new information becomes available, this can be varied. It will enable new strategy development to occur if we identify an area of deficit. That could result in, for example, something like the soils framework that Bruce has mooted as being put forward under the PIMIC-PIS process. It requires oversight, portfolio oversight, a notion that's also come up earlier in this session. And it's an investment strategy matter, and I'm very conscious that I'm making this presentation in a casino, where people are placing bets all the time about where to spend to get something back. We need to be as informed as we can to minimise the risk that money will be poorly spent. And if we can get even a 10% improvement in the way the 2.9 billion is spent in terms of outcomes, then that's equivalent to spending another 290 million per annum. So in my concluding comments, I guess the concept that the Council would like to present to you today is that we think that there's an investment portfolio. The investment plan is about how do we take a portfolio approach, how do we define this broadly, keep the levies and the producers and processors in the middle, recognise that there's much expansion around us, communicate as well as we can with that, and at the end of the day, get beyond the persistent underinvestment puzzle. Over time, we would like a system in which the level of investment can be adjusted based on performance and risk. And with feedback via evaluation, we'd like to build on and across existing frameworks to achieve a resilient system that is internally aware and can redirect itself as needed. That way, we should be able to overcome some of that horizontal and vertical inequity, Julian, that you pointed out to us. Things like inadequate funding and distortions within the mix. But we do believe that some group at some point needs to be given the mandate to do that, and in that way collectively achieve ongoing evolution of the national primary industries RD&E system in Australia. I'd like to also acknowledge, as well as my council colleagues, the support of DPI Victoria and of course all the work that's done through Bruce and his team in partnership with DAF to build the framework. And I think it's important that we acknowledge at this time the work of the Chief Scientist and her office, which is small, but has been absolutely tireless in taking the rural matters forward into those reports and through to the Australian government, and of course that's the space in which the Rural R&D